Kaustubha Das here with a big announcement for Wisdom of the Sages listeners. This August will be Ashram Month at the Super Soul Farm. Simple ashram living, rising early, morning kirtan, yoga and pranayama, healthy vegan and vegetarian meals, farm seva and being immersed in nature, and then gathering in the evenings for kirtan and readings. Plus, each week we'll have a lead presenter teaching a different facet of the philosophy and lifestyle of Bhakti-yoga. Week number 1 will be the exceptional Bhakti Lata teaching a course called The Beauty of Bhakti, bringing the culture of love and devotion into our lives. Week number 2 is my brother from another mother, Raghunath, teaching Falling in Love with Divinity, the Bhakti-yogi's method for opening the heart. And week number 3 is myself with a course called Following the Path, examining the history and teachings of Bhakti-yoga. You can come for 1, 2, or all 3 weeks, and the pricing is by donation. For more dates and information, go to wisdomofthesages.com/events. Peace.
Live from Super Soul Farm, this is Wisdom of the Sages, a daily yoga podcast with your host, Raghunath, and co-host and senior educator at the Bhakti Center, New York, Kaustubha Das. Welcome to the show, everybody. It's Thursday. Woohoo! Thursday, winding down. Tomorrow's a Wisdom of the Sages retreat. And some last minute stuff at the farm. Going to be up here with Kaustubha. Looking forward to that. Going to tackle them.
Here we go again.
Roll around with him, roll down the hill, laugh joyfully, unabashedly. How are you, Prabhu?
Good, good. I spoke to Genevieve yesterday.
Genevieve, she's coming. It's exciting.
Yeah, she's coming up on Saturday. Yeah, so she'll be there for Saturday and Sunday, which should be great.
Oh, great. It's great. Pillow fights. Mary, you can pillow fight Genevieve. That'd be good.
Can't wait.
She's tall. She's got a longer reach. I'd like to see those two go at it. All right. Kaustubha?
Yeah, I think now might be a good time to go for it. You seem like you're looking for some kind of squirrel.
Looking for squirrels.
Maybe we got to have announcements right now.
Alrighty. Yes.
Here comes Mary. Swing that mic over.
Yeah. We have Bhakti Recovery Group meeting today at noon, and there's still spaces available for Wisdom of the Sages in Italy, July 18th to 25th, if people want to go.
Yeah, you know why? Because my kids aren't coming, so those spots opened up. I know. I'm a little bummed.
Well, it's good news for
some. Go to wisdomofthesages.com. That's going to be fun. I'm looking forward to that. And Kirtan school next week with me and Seth Lieberman.
Nice.
It goes Wisdom of the Sages. I get like a day off, and then Kirtan school. I get like a day off, and then I'm leaving the country.
Okay.
All right. Let's dive into a nugget, my friend.
What you got?
This is from a person named Cruz Stark from the Haunted Dusk. We didn't have no theme this week. We have no nugget theme.
No, we don't have a theme.
Okay, let's call this
I may have a
themeless
theme.
week. Themeless week.
Yeah, themeless. I was thinking I might have a good theme for next week. Working on something.
Yeah. Okay. Human beings are, at least in one aspect, sensation receiving machines. Oh, I like that. I'm going to steal that.
Like that?
Sensation receiving machines. And although our receptory apparatus is competent to select and organize outward stimuli within the narrow range for physical survival within our environment, it does not necessarily tell us very much about the nature of that environment. People, in other words, have little access to the possible world existing beyond their sensations.
Or do they?
Can I read this again?
Yeah.
Human beings are, at least in one aspect, sensation receiving machines. And although our receptory apparatus is competent to select and organize outward stimuli within the narrow range necessary for physical survival within our environment, it does not necessarily tell us very much about the nature of that environment. People, in other words, have little access to the possible world existing beyond their sensations.
Yeah, I mean, it's actually just that last part they say, or do they? Right? Like
That's where
following,
Kaustubha adds. Kaustubha's
or do
purport
they?
is, or do they?
Or do they? Right? No, because he's talking about epistemology, just like we were talking last week or the week before, right? He's saying that, okay, we're moving around in a machine that has senses, right?
Yeah.
And those senses, he's calling them receptory apparatus.
Yeah, I like that a lot.
You like that? So yeah,
like
it's a
that.
machine, right? It's a machine, and
For sure.
we don't necessarily think about, because when you identify with the body, you just think that
This is me.
this is me. The
What I
senses
am.
are me, right? Yeah. But he's saying, no, that's just the apparatus that you're using, right? That's why it's useful to call it apparatus, I think, right? Because an apparatus implies that there's a user of the apparatus.
Right. What's the Bhagavad Gita verse? Yantra Rudhani Mayaya.
Oh yeah, as if on a machine made of the material energy. Yeah.
What is that? What is that verse?
That's like 18.
The spirit soul.
61 or something like that.
It's like we're seated on a machine made up of material matter.
Yeah.
So interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. And
so go on.
And it's got it's got receptory apparatus. Those are the senses. Now we generally don't. You see, what I like about what he's saying here is he's saying that we're moving around in a world that sends sensations that we receive through our receptory apparatus. And for maybe the majority, I mean, largely people say, okay, and that is life, right? Like, try to get as much pleasurable sensations going through your machine. And the more you can do it, the more successful you are in life.
Right. That's a win. More pleasure on the machine.
Yeah. And then eventually the machine falls apart, and that's it. Here he's saying, well, no, actually, you have this sensory apparatus, and you can organize that stimuli. There, I see that as an indication of the mind, right?
Yeah.
But it's not telling us what's beyond. Like, what is it that's beyond this apparatus, or what is the nature of this whole game in the first place, right? It's like, why am I here using this apparatus? Is there some? And this, I really like that that nugget we had the other day about, I'm born. I forget.
Everybody
my
loved that
identity.
one.
It's a good one, right? I forget my identity.
Cycle of life.
Yeah, I'm born.
I get wrapped up in the drama
of the material drama.
My avatar is melting or dying.
No, then, well, I translate. I didn't use the word avatar when I put it up on our Instagram, but I said, then my human, what was it? My human form
I didn't
expires.
read yours. I read the first one.
It was almost the same, but my human form expires before I learn all the lessons, and then I'm born again, and then I forget my identity again, and then I get caught up again, and then my form expires again, and that's the cycle that we go through. So we lose touch because we have these desires to enjoy the sensations that come through the apparatus, but we're not thinking more deeply about life necessarily, and like what's the purpose to all of this. And then we expire before we figure it out, and we do it again. Now, he says people, in other words, have little access to the possible world existing beyond their sensations. Now, half of that thought I like, right? Like, yeah, what's beyond this? We should be inquiring, or what's the purpose of it all? But what the Vedic tradition is saying is actually you do have access to that. It's just not through your senses that you get that. Right. It's that has to be handed down to you. And that's what the Vedic literature is. That's what
Shabda Brahman.
Shabda Brahman. Yeah. That there is through sound. And when we say through sound, it doesn't mean like, well, isn't that sensory? In one sense, yeah, you're receiving that sound through your senses, but it's beyond what your hearing could pick up on its own, right? It's a message that's coming.
Or seeing, yeah.
Yeah, it's a message that's from people that are perceiving what's beyond it. That's, we had that great verse that Nityananda's girls chanted. What is that? Om Tad Vishnu Paramam Param Sada, right? That the great seers, they're seeing what's beyond this, right? They're perceiving the spiritual realm. They're perceiving beyond what the material senses can perceive. And the idea is that if one can master their senses, then, master the material senses, then other types of perception can open up to us. It can open up to us now through hearing. And gradually, that perception can expand and expand and expand. That's yoga.
See, I thought they were going to go a little different way with that quote.
Where are you going to go?
I thought they were going to go, because this is what I always say with this one. Human beings are, at least in one aspect, sensation receiving machines. So I like that sensation. Then I thought I was going to go, and on top of that, the subtle body, the mind, or something adds meaning to those sensations. The unique individuals add meaning to those sensations. You know what I'm talking about?
Add
Like
meaning,
everything in the material world is
artificially?
relative, and it's concocted in the mind. So, it's a very, very sunny day out. So I'm receiving that information through the senses. But then in my mind, the sun is going to give me skin cancer, skin poisoning, or something like that. I add a special meaning due to some filter, what I think a sunny day is. And you'd be thinking, oh man, I want to sunbathe today. I love the sun.
Yeah. So that's the next level, right? That's how the mind is programmed. Two people are perceiving the same sun. For one, it's a sensation of pleasure. For another, it's stimulating fear or despondency of some sort.
Yeah.
Right? And those are all relative in one sense. I mean, there may be truth, there may be elements of truth in there, but the point is how we respond emotionally is due to how our mind's been programmed through the experience that we've gone through.
Yeah. Very good.
Okay. Cruise Stark.
All right.
Haunted Dusk.
Yeah. Was that a poem?
I think it's a collection of essays that deal with supernatural or something like that.
All right, let's dive into the nectar pot.
Okay.
Narayanam namaskritya daram chaiva narottamam devim saraswatim vyasam tato jayam mudirayat. Before reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is our very means of conquest, one should offer respectful obeisances to the Supreme Lord, Narayan. Unto Narayan Rishi, the supermost human being, unto Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, and to Srila Vyasadeva, the author. Nasta prayeshva badreshu nityam bhagavat sevaya bhagavati uttama bhaktir bhavati naishtaki. By regular attendance in classes in the Bhagavatam and by rendering service to the pure devotee, all that is troublesome to the heart will become eradicated, and loving service to the Supreme Lord, who is praised with transcendental songs, will be established as an irrevocable fact. Om Jnana Timarandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Midatam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I was born in the darkness of ignorance, and my teachers are opening my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my obeisances at their lotus feet. Mara, where is we?
Reading from Canto 4, Chapter 22, Text 23.
I was right there.
Yeah.
Well, so why don't we have a little recap? Because yesterday we went off on a tangent.
We went off on a maha squirrel.
Yeah. Oh, you know what that means? Also, Raghunath, yesterday was the cleansing of the Gundicha Mandir in Puri, preparing for the Rath Yatra festival. Tomorrow is the Rath Yatra.
Oh, the actual Rath Yatra. You know what? I'm going to go to Rath Yatra one of these years in India.
I would love to do that too.
I've always sort of like, well, it's summer. I don't care. I don't care anymore.
Okay. Just want to go?
I'm just going to
go.
go.
Do it next year.
Yeah.
You got to go with the right people.
I want to take my kids.
Oh yeah, be wild.
They like it.
Sachi would be into it.
Yeah, she's into my
moshing,
getting packed in there, getting like almost trampled to death.
I know. I've seen her at the Bunky Bihari Mandir in Vrindavan, and
packed in there.
If she can handle that. She can handle the Rath Yatra.
All right, let's go. Text 23.
Well, let's just look at text 22 again, though. Okay.
Text 22.
Because there was a question that was asked by Prithu, right? And he's speaking to the 4 little boy sages, the 4 Kumars.
Yeah.
4 Kumars just literally means like 4 little boys, right?
Yeah, 4 Kumars. It means 4 children. They do that a lot. Children, like Garuda just means eagle.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't mean the divine eagle. We're just assuming it means the divine. Like Matsya means fish. Mm-hmm. But we know it means Lord fish. Right?
Yeah. Well, yeah, when we use it that way.
So the 4 Kumars means the 4 kids.
Yeah. So the question was, let's see. I therefore ask you, how in this material world can we very soon? Interesting, right? Because they're different yogic paths, but he's asking for one that's quickly effective, right? I therefore ask you, how in this material world can we very soon achieve the ultimate goal of life? Okay, and so then the four Kumars, they praise Prithu for his behavior. They praise him for the nature of his words, like the quality of his speech, and the quality of the question. And then they begin to answer. In this text 22, we're kind of getting like a mini seminar now on Bhakti-yogi and how it works. All right, and so in text 22, why don't we read that one again?
Attachment for the supreme can be increased by practicing bhakti, devotional service, inquiring about the Supreme Personality of Godhead, applying bhakti yoga in life, worshiping Yogeshwar, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and by hearing and chanting about the glories of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. These actions are pious in themselves.
Okay, so he's saying that first interesting thing that we will review here, remember, is that he says attachment for the supreme. So he's seeing that as the ultimate goal of life, right? He mentioned earlier that it's just a question of shifting your attachment. It's not about becoming entire. It's not like detachment for detachment's sake. One's detaching themselves from the illusion, but attaching themselves to the supreme. And that's the goal there. Right. And then he's saying how it can be done, and he's giving different practices of bhakti yoga here, which have a lot to do with hearing, right? What you take in through the years. Okay, text 20.
Yeah, it's through the hearing, like we start to shift the way we work. Let's just see the world.
It's that simple.
It's that simple. One has to make progress in spiritual life by not associating with persons who are simply interested in sense gratification and making money.
Those are people that are moving through, they got their, what do you call it? Sense, how do you phrase it again in the nugget? Receptory devices.
Yeah.
They see that this is the whole point in life, is to satisfy these. If you associate too much with those kind of people, you're going to start to think that way too.
Yeah.
Be deeper in the illusion.
Not only such persons, but one who associates with such persons should be avoided. One should mold his life in such a way that he cannot live in peace without drinking the nectar of the glorification of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Hari. One can be thus elevated by being disgusted with a taste of sense enjoyment.
Interesting.
Disgusted.
Sounds kind of negative.
Sounds like these guys are so negative.
but it is kind of like that, isn't it? That there's something actually. It sounds like what you just want life to be like miserable. Is that like your spiritual path?
I always look at it like, if you've ever done a juice fast, you feel a type of high from a juice fast, or even a water fast, but you're not. The high is coming from your body moving so nicely, especially when you get to that level where you're just like, it feels good. And you're not consuming anything, and you don't want anything, and you're not even hungry. And then all of a sudden someone says, "Hey man, you want some pizza?" And they wave a pizza in front of your nose, and you're like, "No, I don't want your pizza." Even if you just get you just develop a more subtle high. And that's how I can relate to things like that. It's like indulgence sounds good when you're gripped by the mode of passion. Yeah, let's indulge. It's going to be great. All you got to do is think it through a little bit. It's not going to be great. Think it through. Think it through. After the indulgence, how do you feel? And that is reality. And so people who can just hear about, hey, don't be so indulgent like that, just pull back. If they can listen to that, that's first class intelligence. Sometimes we have to indulge first to only realize, why did I do that? What was I thinking? That famous mantra, what was I thinking? And then, of course, the third class intelligence is you indulge, you feel horrible, and you say, well, I'll never do that again. And then you do it again. I feel horrible again. I'll never do that again. And then I do it again. And that repeated cycle of indulgence and being miserable goes on forever. Third class intelligence, never learning lessons.
I always remember once when I first became a monk, right? It was like brand new, relatively brand new.
Baby Bhakta Kaustubha, hi.
And so, I was with a few other.
You're adorable.
I was with a few other like relatively new monks as well. And we were just in the habit of just like going on, just speaking on and on about just like unimportant stuff, trying to take pleasure in it. And I remember at a certain point within myself, I began to feel a little disgust for that level of conversation.
Yeah.
And that feeling of disgust, there's a bittersweetness to it, right? And it's like on one level, it's kind of like you're a little disappointed in yourself and a little frustrated with your situation. But there's a sweetness in it where it's like actually the truth is opening up now, right? Like the reality is opening up. The higher level of existence is opening up. Once you kind of look back on it, there's that famous verse, of course. You know the verse I'm thinking about?
Hisham Sparsa Jaboga.
No, not the Gita verse, but the verse from Yamunacharya.
Oh yeah.
Right.
I get that verse though. To me, I get that verse in the same way I get the thing of fasting. It's sort of like he's like when I think of.
He says, now that my mind is all engaged in always thinking of the pastimes of Krishna, right? That higher spiritual reality. Go on.
Yeah. My lips curl and I spit.
No, not at that.
No.
No, he says, now that my mind is always absorbed in thinking about Krishna, what he says is when I think about my previous sexual indulgences, right?
Right.
He says, my lip curls and I spit at the thought. And, I don't see that as like some kind of puritanical kind of, because the pastimes of Krishna are actually, even they're erotic, sometimes,
erotic.
But I don't see it as some kind of puritanical kind of denial of the flesh or something, but I see that as like, he's thinking, I used to be living a life where I was turning my back on that supreme being that has nothing but pure love for me. And I was trying to take the role of that divine being, that ever well-wisher, that dear friend of mine. And I was just causing suffering to myself and others through it.
Okay.
Right?
I
like
get
that.
Yeah, I'll take the torch now.
Okay.
Let me run with this one for a little bit.
Okay.
I remember being a brahmachari, a new brahmachari, and of course, like I'm basically 22 years old, 23 years old, and the struggles of trying to control your sexual appetite at that age when your hormones are busting out. But I knew I wanted to do this, so sometimes I'd travel to different ashrams where there was just a bunch of men monks. And they were very strict about relating with the opposite sex. And so after like a week or 3 weeks or you stop forgetting, you stop thinking about, you don't realize how much you're thinking about, oh, she's cute or she's cute or she's cute. And when you stop that thinking and your mind doesn't go there and the conversation's not going there, the kama, the desires in your mind just start to recede. And something very interesting happens. You become peaceful. It's got nothing to do with hating that. It's like your mind is always, it's really an analysis of the mind and how the mind is living in desire. And that living in desire is not you enjoying anything. It's a hope to enjoy. That hope to enjoy is keeping you like on a treadmill chasing a carrot. So when the lust diminishes, and everybody, not just men and women, but for me, I was in a male body. I was in a male body. I am in a male body. It diminished. And then there became a sense of peace where I was remembering as a brand new devotee. I was like, boy, this mantra works. It's like, I have no more sex desire. I'm like a liberated. I started to think like that. I was like, I've become like very, very evolved, like a Paramahamsa. But it was just because I was in a community, a tight woven community that had high standards. At the same time, that desire in the heart is still there. So part of that desire is like, nah, just, flirt, because there's so much pleasure in flirting, but it's actually not pleasure. It's just evoking or making desire surface. And then when you indulge even in the flirting, which feels good to flirt, then all of a sudden it creates more desires and you're in that glue trap again. So there is a peace when you can and most of us don't even realize that, because we're just in the material world not thinking that. But as a monk, when you're isolating yourself from the objects of desire, then that's a good band name, by the way.
What was that again?
Objects of Desire.
I don't know, but okay.
But anyway,
the objects of desire.
It sort of sounds like
I think I might add to the end of are you?
But the idea is, when the objects of desire aren't there, the mind becomes incredibly peaceful. Yeah. And we live in a culture where we're immersed in the objects of desire, and we just think that's normal. It's not. That desire, I want that, I want that, I want her, I want her, I want her. I'm looking at her, I'm checking out him. And we're just going back and forth with our mind like that. And we're living in this Raja Guna mind. You know, when I first realized this, Prabhu, is when I was in India. And in India, there's sort of, at least back in the 80s then, there was not, people didn't flirt. Indian women didn't flirt with boys, especially boys dressed like brahmacharis.
And vice versa.
If you see a woman on the street and you think she's cute, and if you want to, if you have some desire for that woman, you can have that woman, but you have to meet her father, meet her brother, and marry her, and then you can have that woman, so to speak. And so after a while, you realize, well, this isn't going to happen. You get it out of your mind, and you stop going there.
Right,
and when the mind stops going to desire, the mind becomes incredibly peaceful. So that's what I understand Yamunacharya's, and you become so peaceful. It's such a high that when you think of something, a carnal pleasure, it's not like it's evil. It just takes you to a lower level of pleasure, which is pleasure in Rajas and Tamas.
Yeah, now, of course, I love everything you're saying, but of course, Yamunacharya is saying it's more than just a peaceful mind that he's attained, right? He's saying nava rasa, like newer and newer flavors I'm tasting. So like, it's a beautiful verse. Yad avadi mama chaita Krishna padara vinde. Nava rasa, like
Nava rasa.
So newer and newer flavors, right? So this is from his book. What is it? Why can't I think of it? The Mukunda Mala Stotra.
Yeah.
Now, so he's one of the 12 Alwars, right? He's one of like these. He was a king.
I didn't know that.
But he was like a poet, and he had such deep realizations. There's an incredible story about him. Right. Let's first talk about the verse. So there's different translations I have of it here. Here's one. Since my mind has been engaged in the service of the lotus feet of Lord Krishna, and I have been enjoying ever new transcendental humor, like transcendental flavors. Another translation is like this. He says, since I've begun to enjoy these transcendental exchanges of love, in other words, enjoying, immersing, hearing Bhagavatam and the love of the gopis for Krishna, the love of the residents of Vrindavan for Krishna, the love of Krishna for the gopis and for the residents of Vrindavan. I've been absorbing my mind in that now, right? And I've begun to enjoy that now. So since my mind has become absorbed in that, and you know what that means, Raghunath? It means since my mind has become absorbed in that love that has no selfish element in it, right? That has
what is selfish means I want.
For me,
I want.
Yeah.
That
love
I
is
want.
the opposite, actually, right? So that means like my so-called loving, engagements in this world, they weren't really love. And so now he's in touch with that higher thing, right? Since I've begun to enjoy these transcendental exchanges of love, which are always newer and newer, right? It's like, it's the opposite of the material thing, where it's like, what is that? Puna charvita charvitanam, like that. It's like chewing
that which has already been chewed.
Yeah, like even sexually, like, right? People, they chew it, and then they need something, and then at a certain point that becomes dissatisfied. They need a new lover. They need to do it in a different way. It's like they need to create some kind of fantasy, right?
Put on a wig.
Yeah, like it's like it loses its flavor. Material exchanges lose their flavor. Spiritual is always newer and newer.
They say that Sanskrit, for those who don't know that verse, it's such a great verse in the Bhagavatam. It's chewing that which has already been chewed. Sense gratification is described as chewing that which has already been chewed.
I have
it's
it.
like,
here we go.
Like when your children are when your children are little, they would they would chew a piece of gum, and when all the gum is doesn't taste like anything anymore. They say, hey, your dad, you want my gum? Like, no, I don't want your gum. There's no flavor in it. That's the material world. You want to read the verse?
Yeah, it's from Prahlad, little Prahlad speaking to his father, really upsetting him at this
Boldly.
point. Yeah, really upsetting him at this point. And he's saying, he's speaking right to his father, who's this like brash materialist. And he's like a little boy saint. And he's saying, because of their uncontrolled senses, right? Getting back to the senses, what the receptors.
The receptors. Hi, we're the receptors.
Because of their uncontrolled senses, persons too addicted to materialistic life make progress towards hellish conditions and repeatedly chew that which has already been chewed. Their inclinations toward Krishna are never aroused, either by the instructions of others, by their own efforts, or by a combination of both. Right? Like I've become so ignorant and so obsessed with trying to enjoy through the senses, even it's losing its flavor, you know, and I lose touch with that reconnection with reality and with Sri
Anything
Krishna.
in the material world is sort of
Just
generally
wears
like
out.
that, you know?
Yeah. So
right? When I was little, I always wanted to go to the fair and you go to bumper cars. And it was like, this is the best thing in the world, bumper cars. I get to drive my own little car.
Doesn't take long.
Imagine if those bumper cars were in your backyard. All right, you'd be bored of them immediately.
You know, it's all
3
so
days
absurd, right? Or it's just like the you know, the parents are driving the kids to the amusement park and they're basically driving a car, right? And they're just like, they're stuck in, you know, they're frustrated with the traffic and they're like, oh my God, we got to drive for a whole hour. And then you get to a place and you drive around in an artificial car and you're like, oh, this is fun, right?
It's great. I can't move.
Yeah. But so again, this verse, since my mind has been engaged in the loving service of the lotus feet of Krishna, in these hearing these pastimes or hearing about these transcendental exchanges of love, I'm tasting something, nava rasa, newer and newer flavors. I'm tasting. They don't get chewed out. They get sweeter, right? They get sweeter as I go. And then he says, so since then, since my mind has been absorbed in this higher idea of enjoyment, this higher idea of love,
Bring me a higher love.
whenever I remember the pleasures of my past sex life, my lips curl and I spit at the thought. Right? So, and again, it's not like it's not misogyny here. It's not some puritanical kind of just, you know, weird thing. No, he's tasting, he's absorbed in love, but a real love, you know. So this
love with a capital L.
Love with a capital L. That's
well, because you know, this is the whole thing. Like I was saying, when I was hanging out with the group of brahmacharis, this new brahmachari, and that passion goes down, and you feel a peace. You feel like you're liberated. That's one facet of where we're going. But then what you're saying is, but it's not just like stopping the fluctuations of the mind and the input of the desire. It's when the desire minimizes and then fully engaging.
There you go.
That's the difference between mukti and bhakti right here. It's not just I'm peaceful and now because there is an incredible high in just controlling those senses, which is why all yogis, or especially these renunciates, they have very, very tight reins on their senses. You know, if you think we're extreme, these guys are super extreme. But because of that, an outer body peace. Why? Because the soul is naturally blissful anyway. So they're identifying with the soul. Mm-hmm. But what's happening is in bhakti, we're taking it to that next level. We're just implanting that charming young cowherd boy, which like sort of like ignites the soul and it becomes a whole next level type of joy.
We're Soul Ignition from Bayonne, New Jersey.
We're Ignite the Soul.
But you know, you know what you're saying is real important too, because even like, is it in Bhagavatam that we hear about Subhari Muni?
It's in the 10th canto, but I think there's some other stories too out there.
So here, when we get to the revelation of Bhakti Yoga, right?
One of my favorite places, by the way, you just gave me a Krishna Vrindavan memory. Okay. Subhari Muni's ashram.
Uh-huh.
Have you been there?
I can't remember, but is it on the?
I'm going to take it
mark.
well. If you go towards the Parikraman, you take the first left by Varaha Ghat, you take a left, right?
Take
You take a left, and you keep going, and you go into this tiny village, and they have this beautiful. Mara, you've been there, right? I think Rachel's been there, I think, and you go. Skinner, I think, has been there. Maybe no, Skinner's not. But you're on top. You have this incredible ashram right on the Yamuna. You've never seen. It's such a cool place, and then it's breathtaking. You just see the fields and the forests.
Let's go there.
Okay.
But my point being is that no problem. But when you get to the Bhagavatam, which is going to give the highest revelations about yoga, right? It's the fully developed message of Vyasadeva, who's giving us all the teachings. You hear the story of Subhari Muni, where he was a person that had mastered his senses to the extent where he could go underwater and meditate for long periods of time. Right.
So we're talking about next level yoga stuff.
This
we got
is way beyond
good,
any of us. Right?
We got some pretty good yogis listening to us right now. Lori Pag, master of yoga, but we're talking about Lori Pag. You're going to impress me when you can go underwater for a few days and just
Yogi
start doing
says he's seen that. He's
yogi's going underwater. People get, they just
for 2 weeks,
can 2 weeks underwater. Okay, Lori Pag, that's your.
But the point was, imagine what it takes, the sense control and the determination, the self-discipline that it takes to be able to do such a thing. Subhari Muni was down there doing it. But because he wasn't tasting, because it was a renunciation without a positive engagement, right? With even in a sense, a sensual engagement, right? Like, in other words, Yamunacharya, he's meditating on the pastimes of Krishna. They're full of flavor. They're full of exchanges of love. Subhari Muni wasn't meditating like that. He was just trying to find peace and release, renounce it all. So he even saw 2 fish,
copulating.
And even that was enough to just kind of like spark it back in him, right? So it's this positive engagement, that's therefore it said, by hearing Bhagavatam, by hearing the 10th canto of Bhagavatam, by hearing the Rasa Leela, which is all like romantic, love, one actually becomes free from the materialistic lust.
You trade in your small L love for your big L love.
Yeah. Okay. Note that one down, Mayor.
Small L love for big. She's already on that. I thought she was taking a photo of me. Like, how sweet. She's taking a photo of me. She must admire me. And then I realized she's texting people.
She's taking notes. She's taking notes. She's doing her job.
I think she's admiring me. How sweet.
So now here's the story about Yamunacharya. You ready, Raghunath?
Okay.
So
by the way,
an
additional squirrel onto your Subhari Muni. Okay. He fell down from seeing the fish copulating, but it's also because he offended Garuda. And if Garuda's the backstory is that not just that you fall down from a position of being very high as a yogi, but when we start to offend Vaishnavas, then Krishna just says, okay, you can't come in this realm. You're not qualified to come in this realm yet. You're still in material consciousness. You got to go down there and you got to deal with the gunas, and there's strong punishment of offending great souls. He offended Garuda and he lost it. Okay. You know what happened next?
No.
He married all these queens. And he got really tied down in the material.
Well, that's where Yamunacharya, little segue here. That's where Yamunacharya was, right? See, Yamunacharya in his youth, he had a life of devotional, service and a life of bhakti. But when he became king, he lost touch with it, right?
Sure, because, that's the problems with success or good fortune.
Material opulence, right?
Good fortune can be a massive problem.
Yeah, you can imagine he's living in a palace.
Yeah.
We've seen some of these palaces, right?
Yeah.
What palaces have you been to?
Udaipur, the palace in Udaipur.
Yeah.
Palace in Jaipur.
Mm-hmm.
Palace in
Have you been to the one in
the embassy?
Mysore? Have you been to that Mysore palace?
Never been to the Mysore palace.
Incredible.
I heard it's nice.
Yeah.
So it's sort of like it's anybody when you start experiencing, and I'm sure a lot of you guys here have experienced like really good things are going really well, then all of a sudden there's like a drift of your intelligence, and you're like, how can I enjoy my senses?
Well, I mean, what to speak of the opulence when you're the king, right? Like,
It's
many
next level
beautiful wives,
opulence.
unlimited. You have fame and power. And
Everybody
all that.
worships you.
Yeah.
You're getting like your ancestors' crowns.
Everyone's bowing down.
I want you to fit this crown on your Raghunath Maharaj.
Okay. So Yamunacharya got lost in that opulence, lost touch with it. But you know what happened, Raghunath? There's one sadhu who wanted to bring him back, wanted to remind him.
Oh, you
right?
got a whole
Wanted to
story
help him.
for me here.
Yeah,
Tell me
there's
this
a
story.
You don't know this story.
I don't know the story.
It's a really interesting story. So there's one sadhu, right? One saintly person, simple living, saintly person. This person has no opulence like that, just has a knowledge and wisdom and a good heart, and he cares for Yamunacharya. He wants to help him. But the problem was he had no access. It was like, if I could just sit down and speak with him, I know I could reignite. We're reignition, right?
Reignition.
I know I could reignite
The soul.
Yeah, reignite that devotion that he had. It's still lying there. It's just been covered up, right? If I could just speak with him, but he had no access to him. Okay, so he came up with a plan.
Scheme.
He got this. He had a scheme. He got this really rare. I guess, what do you call it? Like a variety of spinach, right? This really tasty, nutritious spinach, but that's like hard to find.
Yeah.
You with me?
Well, it froze. It froze.
Okay.
So I got this really.
He got this rare variety of delicious, nutritious spinach that was hard to find.
Delicious and nutritious?
Yes. And he brought it to the cook. He had no access to Yamunacharya, the king, but he had access to his cook, right? So he went around the back door, around the kitchens, and he said, hey, I have this really wonderful spinach I would like to offer to the king. Could you please prepare this for his lunch today? And he said, oh, yes, this is lovely spinach you've got here. This is a rare variety, yes.
It is very good.
And so he cooked that and prepared it for Yamunacharya, and Yamunacharya enjoyed it, and so he began to bring it every day. Okay? And so it became like a regular thing. And then one day he didn't bring it. Okay, so then Yamunacharya said, hey, where's the spinach today?
Where's my spinach?
Bring the cook in here. I don't see the spinach. Right? He brought it.
Thought we'd change it up for you, Your Highness.
Yeah, no, that's not what he said. He says, where's the spinach today? He said, oh, well, this sadhu, he brings it every day, and he didn't come today. Oh, really? Bring me this sadhu. And that was the opening. Right?
That was the inch. Okay. Right.
And then, so then that sadhu had an audience with the king and with Yamunacharya, and he began to explain. Don't you remember?
Wait a second. The king was Yamunacharya?
Yes, Yamunacharya was the king.
Okay. All right.
And so he began to explain to him, don't you remember before all this, you've lost touch with it, and he revived the sense of devotion. And coming out of that, the king was kind of like, you're so right. I've been trying to enjoy these opulences through sex, through fame, through power, but actually it's not satisfying at all. I've achieved that. I'm the number one materialist in the whole kingdom, right? Like, I've got more than everybody else, but I don't have happiness. I don't have peace of mind. I don't have any kind of, there's nothing truly to relish here. And so that's where this verse comes from. Since I've begun to, now he gets back into his devotional life. He starts to hear from that sadhu regularly, the pastimes of Krishna. And so Bhagavatam, and he begins to relish that again. And now he looks back, I was a fool. Right. So that sense of where did this all?
Did he give up his kingdom?
At some point, I'm sure he did.
But not like on the spot.
No, I think he
became more like a saintly king.
I believe so. And so we read today in our verse that one can thus be elevated by being disgusted with the taste for sense enjoyment. It's not some puritanical, mindless kind of religious restriction that has no point to it except to make everybody suffer. Right?
Yeah,
that's not
some
what
like cruel, sadistic God.
Yeah, but it's the idea is that if my eyes can open up, if my ears can open up, and I can get some kind of vision of a higher love, a higher reality, a higher idea, then I will naturally, as that begins to open up within myself, it's natural and it's actually bittersweet to feel a little disgust, and that's what I felt as a brahmachari when I was saying, like, we just got caught up in just talking nonsense and just going on and on and on and on and on. And at a certain point, I felt enough, like I've had enough of this. And I felt a sense of disgust in myself, but actually it was bittersweet, and that now I welcome that feeling of disgust, right? And you can even pray for that feeling of disgust.
Let me be disgusted with sense gratification.
Yeah. A little bit disgusted with oneself. That's okay. It's not like a self-hatred or anything like that, but it's just like I'm better than
I'm better than this. I'm better than this.
Yeah. So let me live
for
that
sure.
way. Yeah.
Right. We were saying yesterday like that. Oh, we're talking about raising the bar.
Raise the bar.
And if we don't raise the bar, we were saying, oh, the bar is so high. How can I ever do this? But if we don't raise the bar and we just sit in our mediocrity, wallow. Yeah. Bathe.
No happiness there. You chew. There's nothing left to do but chew the chewed.
Yeah. And there's that ongoing internal desire to upgrade, which you can't help. Something about the spirit self wants to upgrade the quality of our life, what we consume, what we do. We want to become better, and that will always haunt us if we decide to lower the bar. Raise the bar. Oh yeah, we're talking about the tension. Raise the bar. Let there be a tension. I may not be great enough, but I'm working. I'm working to upgrade myself. It's a healthy tension.
And that's where that good association comes from. Right? This verse was also condemning associating with people who are simply interested in sense gratification and making money, right? Because you're not going to feel that tension, right? But when you start to associate with people that are relishing newer and newer, higher spiritual taste,
there's people that really relish sense gratification. They're like, oh yeah, it's gonna really good.
We're all like that a little bit, aren't we? At least to some degree.
Yeah.
You take pride in it.
You just gotta think it through, though. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Think it through.
You won't think, and you won't think it through if you're just associated with people that don't have that higher vision. But if you do associate with people that have got that they've experienced that they're tuned into it, you're going to feel that tension within yourself, and that's a really healthy tension. And if it leads to a little disgust, that's a healthy bittersweet taste in the diet.
It's not like the mode of passion and the mode of ignorance, right? Rajas and Thomas aren't offering pleasure. They are, but it's a different type of pleasure. In Rajas, it's a hope to enjoy. We're going to go here and enjoy this. I always find myself catching something. I'm excited to go to Italy. I was like, wait a second. I'm not in Italy. Who knows what can happen in Italy? Why not just be happy here now? It's like devotees can't live in that hope to enjoy, right? Because we know it's not real. And we catch ourselves. We have to pull it back. I don't want to live in a hope to enjoy life. I want to enjoy life.
Oh, that's a good word. Mara, get that down.
Mara!
Raghu's on today. Raghu's like, Mara, where was she? I don't want to live in a hope to enjoy life.
Here's a picture of Raghunath.
What do you say? I don't want to live in a hope to enjoy life. I want to enjoy
life. I don't want to live in a hope to enjoy life. I want to enjoy life.
And enjoying life means living in that moment, which means I'm not absorbed in past and future, which means ultimately, ideally I'm absorbed in the spiritual reality, which is beyond time.
I'm not just on this treadmill of running. Ever feel like that? People, it's a very common feeling like I'm running a race in the material world that has no finish line.
I feel like that, but all the time. But my only hope is that I fill it up with aspects of devotional service. So
that's different. This is interesting. That's a great point you made.
Yeah.
The material world means I'm running in a race that has no finish line,
no purpose.
But nothing's happening. Also, right. Whereas you'll still feel that in Bhakti. Like, I've got so much more to do. I didn't read this book yet. I haven't done there. I haven't gone on pilgrimage. I'm trying to do this type of service and get my service done. But the interesting thing is that race is purifying the consciousness, right? It doesn't necessarily, Bhakti-yogi doesn't necessarily mean now I'm just going to quit my job and do nothing. You could still be working with that same passion and fervor, but it's more refined. And now all that passion is going to refining the consciousness. You will be a little bit more balanced for sure. If you're just like at breakneck speeds, trying to work your butt off, you'll be a little bit more balanced. But at the same time, you won't stop working in the world, but that work now will be purifying your consciousness. Like you're up early. Some people are up early, with the jackhammer, working on the roads. You're up early and you're studying and you're probably feeling like, oh, we're getting on the show now, Raghunath, I don't want to be late. I got to get on Zoom. So that type of like, it might appear like passion or busyness, but that busyness is a purifying busyness.
Raghunath, it's like I've had experiences where I've been engaged from morning till night in devotional service in ways that seem like externally there's no pleasure in it.
Right.
Where I'm just being insulted, where I'm in difficult weather conditions, where I'm
insulted.
Yeah, sure.
Who's insulting you?
I'm offended. Books all day. See if you don't get insulted.
What's that?
Go out and distribute books.
Distribute books. Okay, yeah, you're getting insulted. Yeah, sure.
You're burning
ask
heat,
Matt Godin. He's the new book distributor on the block. He went out and distributed books.
All right,
and he got
and so you spend a day from morning till night just like exhausting yourself and just enduring, But I tell you something, Raghunath.
When you come back, that little bowl of khichdi,
and you feel good, and you don't feel that disgust, right? Whereas you spend a day just like eating the junk food, the cotton candy of material enjoyment, and you just start to feel nauseous with yourself. Now, if you do, that's a good sign, right? Like in other words, if I'm wasting my life and I'm wasting my human and spiritual potential, then it's a good thing if I feel disgust. Right. I feel a sense of disgust. And if you're using your human, and one may say, why aren't you enjoying life? You're just like working hard for some pie in the sky. No, if you feel that spiritual connection, you work hard all day. You feel you lie down at the end of the day and you feel a true sense of happiness, like, right. Something that's real, a true spiritual connection. It's so satisfying. Yeah.
Like those kids going around the Festival of India, and that bus tour. It's like they don't enjoy they go up and set up the Rath Yatras. And they go late at night, 9 o'clock at night, and they work through the night to set up the carts and get everything ready so everybody can enjoy it. They don't even get to enjoy it, but there is that nectar of seva and service that they're really relishing. Yeah. That's a beautiful feeling. You're sacrificing enjoyment for that greater good. And it's not just for a humanitarian cause, it's for a spiritual cause. And it's even higher than that. It's not even for a humanitarian cause or a family. Sometimes we stay up all night if you have a little baby and the crying or someone who's sick. And there is a pleasure you get from that. But when it's really tied into spirit and divinity, it's even higher. It's out of body pleasure.
We're out of body pleasure.
We're out of body pleasure. This one's called Spirit Ignite.
Ignite the soul. But I'll tell you, maybe I could end it here. But one thing that I really appreciate about what Srila Prabhupada did, was that he took this very, what is Gaudiya Vaishnavism, right? What is this particular lineage of Bhakti Yoga? What Sri Chaitanya and his followers gave to the world was like a fresh spin on bhakti, which included these most esoteric ideas, of the love of the residents, the intimate love for God, right? The love of the residents of Vrindavan for Krishna, the love of the gopis, their romantic, even erotic love that they have for Krishna and Krishna has for them. And where this lineage leads is to deeper and deeper meditations on that love and the perfection of his entering into those pastimes, right? It's a very esoteric idea that requires a type of purity to really understand and absorb oneself in. And Srila Prabhupada gave all of that, but understanding who we are, right? He brought it to the whole world, a world that was totally disassociated, not only with that, but even with the idea of controlling one's senses, or even with the idea of I'm not this body, and so on. And what he did was he gave us a way. He said things like, fill your entire day so that 24 hours a day you're engaged in service, right? And he saw that as a way to bring our minds to those higher thoughts, right? To remove our minds from the lower. He's like, you can't just sit in a hut and meditate on Krishna's path. That's hopeless.
Sometimes people feel like, no, I can. Give it time. It'll wear off.
It doesn't take much.
Give yourself a year. It happens when we get into bhakti in the new time. And if you're very, very intense and focused, you're like, no, I don't need to do work in the world. I'm just going to sit. I'm going to chant. I'm going to, live in Vrindavan, or I'm going to give it time. You're getting sort of like a teaser, but eventually we have a nature that needs to do stuff in this world. And
so it's a question of how do we engage, and he encourages us to do that, like 24 hours a day you should be engaged in service. And it's been for I think for people like us, we know we're hopeless if we don't, right? And we find pleasure in just like giving and like working hard as service. And then when you do that, you can feel that internal happiness, and you can sit down and open up Bhagavatam and read it and feel happy, right? A different type of happiness, a different type of pleasure that's not this chewing the chewed, but it's Nava Nava Rasa, newer spiritual taste.
Nava Nava Rasa.
We're Nava Nava Rasa.
We're Nava Nava Rasa.
From Walla Walla, Washington.
That was a good one. I played in Walla Walla, by the way.
Yeah, all right.
Yeah. Okay, Mara, give us something to meditate upon today.
I got some good ones. Okay. We are sensation receiving machines.
Ooh.
Detached from illusion and attached to the supreme.
Okay.
After the indulgence, how do you feel?
No, a question there.
I wear that t-shirt too.
And here's a t-shirt for you, Raghu.
How about we're after the indulgence?
Think it through.
Get through. That's a famous one for Raghu.
Yep. There's bittersweetness in disgust.
That's right.
The mind is the mind is living in the glue trap of desire.
Oh.
The hope to enjoy keeps us on the treadmill chasing carrots.
Mm-hmm. That's kind of like a double metaphor right there. I like that. Metaphor. We're on the thing chasing carrots at the same time.
Reignite the soul's devotion.
Reignite the soul's devotion.
Trade in small L love for big L love.
There you go. Big L love that, Raghu.
Backyard bumper cars bring boredom.
They sure do. We're backyard
There's
bumper
alliteration.
Backyard bumper cars, sort of like a joke band.
I don't want to live in a hope to enjoy life. I want to enjoy life.
There you go.
Yeah.
You got to get closer to the mic, Raghu. We can't hear you at all.
What she said.
Engage in purifying busyness.
Okay.
And the cotton candy of material enjoyment leads to nausea.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
There was a band called Nausea, right?
Yes, yeah. I was roommates with Neil and Andrea
Okay.
from Nausea. They're my buddies. Yeah, we had radical right wing and radical left wing in that apartment. When we could all come together.
In the name of hardcore.
Thanks everybody for joining us. Thank you. It was a beautiful day this morning. What a beautiful day to start the day, reading the Srimad Bhagavatam, talking about nausea, talking about the materialism, and talking
Disgust.
about peace, making the mind peaceful so I can meditate on the Nava Nava Rasa of sweet baby Krishna. We're diving into the sweet baby Krishna weekend here at Super Soul Farm. Looking to see everybody, all those others and Zoomers showing up. That's
Hey, check
exciting.
this out. You see this Sega? This is his 3rd anniversary of joining this Sangha. So that means
we've
back
been
to
going for more than
sacred-
3 years.
Yes, Sacred Sangha, the Super Soul Sacred Sangha days before Wisdom
He
Sages.
found us before we were Wisdom the Sages. We should have made a t-shirt of Super Soul Sacred Sangha. They'd be collector's items right now. We could have
could still
sold
do
them,
it.
made a lot of money.